Every Muslim child is taught the story of how the Prophet Muhammad, God's peace and blessings be upon him, received the first words of the Qur'an. At the age of 40, he was meditating in a mountain cave when he saw a vision of the angel Gabriel, who commanded him to read. He replied he didn't know how to read. The request and the reply repeated again and again. And then the first verses of the Qur'an were revealed to him. Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Khalaq al-insana min alaq. Read in the name of your Lord who created mankind from alaq. The word alaq is so important that the chapter of the Qur'an that includes it is named after it, Surah Al-Alaq. But what is alaq? This thing that humans are created from. Most Quranic explanations, such as Tafsir Ibn Kathir and Tahfim al-Qur'an by Sayyid Maududi, focus on asbab al-nuzul, or the circumstances of revelation, elaborating on what happened before, during, and after the event. English translators of the Qur'an who had to define the word alaq as a necessary part of translating it don't seem to agree on its meaning. Is alaq a clot of blood, seminal fluid, a fertilized egg, or a fetus attached to a uterus? Though there are some chapters in the Qur'an that mention the similar feminine form of the word alaqatan, this verse is the only place in the Qur'an where this form of the word alaq is mentioned. So let's consult a dictionary to see if we can learn its meaning. Arabic words generally stem from a 3-letter root and are morphed by rules to come up with other words. For example, sajada, or he bowed down to the ground, is the root of masjid, the mosque or place where people bow down to the ground, and sujad, or a rug that of course people might bow down on. To understand an Arabic word, it helps to understand its root. The root of the noun alaq is alaqa. Its meaning according to the dictionary is he hung, suspended, dangled, clung, adhered, attached, affixed, subjoined, and interestingly, he wrote down. So we see that generally the meaning relates to non-permanent binding or intertwining of things. Another way to understand a word is to see it in its context, how it is used. Now, notice that except for the second verse, 4 out of the 5 verses relate to knowledge acquisition. The word ikra means reading, which everyone knows is a process of decoding symbols that contain meaning. Before I continue on the context, it is worthy to note that today there are over 7,000 spoken languages in the world, but less than 300 are written. The scholar Noam Chomsky, in his universal grammar theory, proposed that people have a genetic disposition to learn and speak languages. So learning and speaking a language comes naturally and is easier for people even as children. Written languages are generally more complex, have far larger vocabularies, are more complicated in their grammar, and can describe human experiences in far more detail. They also don't change as much over time. So there is more permanence in the transmission of knowledge. The bottom line here is that while speaking a language is a wonder of cognitive development, coding and reading written languages is integral to advanced learning. Now back to the verses in the Qur'an. For this word alaq, we have the context of reading or decoding symbols. Other contextual themes include the instrument for coding, i.e. a pen, mankind's learning development, and dispelling ignorance. And finally, that God will be most generous in what humans can therefore learn if they decode what is written. Now, let's focus on the other one verse out of the 5. It is surprising that in the midst of verses dealing with deciphering code to gain knowledge, we have one verse discussing what our species is made from. Alaq. Since there is no clear definition of alaq, could another definition be possible? Could alaq actually be DNA, the molecules that are the basis of life on Earth? DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid, and it is what determines what we are genetically. It is composed of 2 strands that are attached like a spiral ladder. But DNA doesn't stay intact all the time. It partially and temporarily splits to create proteins that do work for each cell in a process called gene expression. It also temporarily splits to make a copy of itself during cellular reproduction. The duplicate chromosomes that are made up of DNA are attached to each other at a centromere and also split from each other during mitosis to create two new cells. Like Alaq, these DNA strands are a non-permanent binding and intertwining. Additionally, DNA has 4 base pairs of nucleic acids attached to it. The order of these base pairs make up our genes and encodes our biology. In other words, DNA is a code to be read. In 2003, international researchers working on the Human Genome Project did just that. They mapped out the human DNA, and the results have had incredible benefits to the study of biology and the practice of medicine. Sarah Bates from the US's National Human Genome Research Institute wrote, "DNA from any 2 people is 99.9% identical. With that shared blueprint guiding our development and forming a common thread across the world, the differing 0.1% contains variations that influence our uniqueness. How can one single molecule contain so much mystery and wonder?" The point of this post is that DNA and Alaq share 3 characteristics. They both involve non-permanent binding and intertwining. They are what our species is created from. And while DNA is a code to be read, learned about, and understood for the benefit of mankind, Alaq is a word in the Qur'an amongst verses that tell us to read, learn, and understand for the benefit of mankind. So is Alaq DNA? Perhaps it should be considered as one of the possible meanings. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.